Hi, good morning. My name is Rinaldo Aguiar, and today is June the 6th, 2025. It's 7:30 a.m. here in Katy, Texas. So this is Central Time. Today, I would like to. So this video is part of the sorry, it's part of the series of videos of rapid fire tips for law enforcement. And today I would like to make a short video about information asymmetry. Okay, and this is a concept that it's been documented before in the website XisList.org. But I've been running some experiments about that topic, and I wanted to share what I've observed. So, for those who are just joining the thread, the conversation, information asymmetry refers to a concept in which an organization, in this case a criminal organization, but I think it's a general concept really, but it refers to a situation in which an organization kind of distills the information that they distribute to the members of the organization, right? So imagine that you have an organization that is hierarchical. So the people at the top, would typically have all the information very quickly. And then as you go down the hierarchy of the organization, people in the lower levels have both less amount of information and more delayed information. Like they get the information later, right? If they get it at all. So the observation more than a year ago was that this network uses information asymmetry as a basic tool for functioning. This means that they keep agents in the dark, right? And the lower the level of the agent is, the more in the dark the agent is. So they don't really know what's going on, right? This means that the foot agents, the ones that are on the ground following people and intercepting radio communications, they have no idea that the geo index was captured 9 months ago, right? Or that it has been decoded and that it's been published on the internet and that their addresses are visible to anyone. Like they have no idea of that. So when I realized that, right? Well, I realized that long time ago, but as the situation has been escalated, right, to the point where they've attempted against my life, I've been looking for ways to disable what they do, right? This is definitely an asymmetric conflict as well, in the sense that they have millions of people, literally, right? Trillions of dollars in resources, access to military personnel, to intelligence agencies of other countries, and I'm a single individual, right? Like I'm a lone software engineer with no resources, right? So I have to find ways to also fight in an asymmetric way, because otherwise I stand no chance. So what I started doing like 2 or 3 months ago was what I call a data bomb. Okay, a data bomb. So the idea is, I create situations in which I expose the ground agents to the truth, right? Which is what the network is avoiding, right? Like they keep them in the dark on purpose. So I started experimenting with different ideas, like the podcast, for example, right? So I started creating these podcasts that you can see on the site. They're available there, and I create them using artificial intelligence, right? I started doing them in English, and then I started translating them to other languages as well, to make this information available to agents of other cultures that don't necessarily speak English, right? And that's one of the observations that I got from all this, is that particularly in the Chinese group of agents, most of them don't speak English. Like they don't understand English at all. And I don't say this as a derogative comment or anything like that. It's just a situation, right? It's just an observation that I've seen, that they're definitely very skilled in what they do, and the ones that are on the technical side, I can tell by things that they do that they're very skilled as engineers. So no disrespect in any way, but they don't speak English, right? So that's why I started translating the 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 podcast to other languages. And there was a funny incident in which I was working on a Chinese translation of the podcast and listening at that podcast in Chinese at home, doing quality assurance basically on the podcast. And I was playing on a loudspeaker, and the Chinese agents next door, who were at 2218 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas 77494, basically called or communicated with Phil Denning, and he came running immediately. Phil Denning is the president, quote unquote, of the homeowners association of Lake Point Estates, where they have more than 60 very prominent agents living in that. It's a very, it's a upscale neighborhood, gated community, protected, surrounded by churches. The whole, security protocol deployed in that area. So they have very prominent agents living there. Anyhow, Phil Denning is like the mayor of this synthetic bizarro community. And then so he came running, right, within 5 minutes after I started playing the podcast, and he started calling the police, right? So I realized that led me to two things, right? One, that the Chinese agents next door don't speak English, because I've been playing the English podcast for over a month, and they hadn't called Phil Denning, and Phil Denning hadn't called the police. It was only when I started playing the Chinese version, right? So that tells me that they don't understand spoken English. And the second observation that I got from that is that they are terrified of these podcasts, right? Well, in general, of the information getting to the agents. Because, think about it, right? Like if you're an agent, right, working for this criminal organization, and they're paying you with crypto for, walking around with a phone, but, you don't really know what's going on, and you're getting paid good money, right? Probably you will be happy to do it, right? But if you listen to that podcast and you realize that the database was leaked, that how much crypto you have is now public on the internet, that your address is public on the internet, that the interception points are public on the internet, well, if you're living in the US at least, I think you would think twice before going out with that iPhone, right? Because you could get in trouble with the FBI or with other law enforcement agencies. If you're in a country where impunity is rampant, like probably Venezuela, right? You probably wouldn't care much. But if you're here, I think you would think twice, right? So I think that's why they're terrified of that information getting to the agents, right? So I realized, this is probably my best weapon to disable this network here, at least, right, in Katy, where my safety is it's an issue, right? I feel like my safety could be a problem, right? So I need to disable them quickly. So I started running, locally, right? So I started running experiments, right? So the first thing I did was, and I've been iterating, like in everything we engineers do, right? We iterate. We start building small versions of the idea, and if it works, then we make it a little bit better, and then if it works, and you know what. So I started by parking. So this is this video over here. I don't know if you can see that, but this video over here. So I started by parking the armored Suburban, the SUV that I drive, which is a Colt Mobile, very close to the edge of the driveway, right? That's what you can see in the video. And I basically printed a page in a letter, piece of paper, and that page said basically spyhell.org, something like learn the truth about what's going on, right? Something like that. And I put it on the back window of the SUV and on the lateral windows on the back. It's a large SUV, so I put it on the back. And the idea, I have these cameras on the mailbox, right, that I use for the radio frequency avoidance system. That's a different topic. I'll talk about that in a different video. But that's why I have those cameras in the mailbox, right? And those are the cameras that law firm that Phil Denning is using to try to silence me. They were threatening to fine me like $70,000 a year for having those cameras in there. Pure harassment, right? So anyhow, but I'll talk about that in a different video as well. So, and I don't know, like I'll show you more or less the reaction, right? So in this video, they sent this woman with a baby, and this is a well-known technique, so much so that last year, 2 years ago, there was a point where, I was running with a friend, and I told her, like, I don't know where they're getting all these babies. Like, they have like a baby rental company or something. That was literally what I said. Because they were like walking these people with babies. They were like hundreds of them every time I went running. And, it got to a point where the babies didn't match the parents. Like at the beginning, there would be like a Hispanic baby with Hispanic parents. But, at some point, like they scale it so much that you would see things like a Chinese baby with African American parents and like like I mean I know how genetics work. I know that could happen, right? But not in that number of occurrences in a space of 2 hours, right? Like if in a space of 2 hours you see 12 babies that don't match the pair of parents that are, or the parent, it's it's obvious, right? They were renting the babies, basically. But so after I made that comment, they switched from babies to dogs, which makes it more scalable because there's no genetic ties between the owner and the dog, and that's why now they have all these dog walkers in Katy. Which is another question, right? Where do they get all these dogs? It's the same question, but it's less traceable. I guess it's a better approach than what they were doing at the beginning. So anyhow, they sent this lady with walking the baby, right? And you can see in the video that she sees I'll describe what she does so you can get it quickly. So she sees the sign and she laughs, right? But she walks like, I don't know, maybe 30 feet, and then she realizes what it says, and then she turns around and abandons what she was trying to. I mean, what she was doing in this video was walking perpendicular to my house to try to get the MAC address of my cell phone. This requires her, basically, the technique is to walk all the way, right? And as she walks, the signal, so the MAC address, so she has a device, probably her iPhone, that is capturing what MAC addresses are visible in the air. And as she walks away from the house, the signal corresponding to my MAC address, if she's walking exactly perpendicular to the house, right? As she walks, the signal should get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And the only MAC address that will consistently get weaker is my MAC address, because she's walking exactly perpendicular to my house, right? All the other houses that have cell phones in them, the signals will go up and will go down, right, depending how close she gets. But given that they know where my cell phone is located, if they walk perpendicular to the house, the only signal that will see that decrease in strength consistently will be my MAC address, right? So that's how the MAC address isolation or reverse triangulation works. So she had to do that. She had to walk, I don't know, probably 250 feet on that direction, right, at that speed. But you see that she abandons at 30 feet, and they used to do this. At this point, I think they abandoned the idea because I basically made it impossible for them. But they used to do this hundreds of times per day. To give you an idea of the numbers, between 5 a.m., which is usually the time that I wake up, and 9 a.m., they would have done, in average, probably 120 times in those 4 hours block. So I've have a lot of measurements and observation points measured deterministically with the cameras, and I know that they need that distance, right? So when she turned around in this video at 30 seconds, I knew that she abandoned, right? So see, there she is, like looking at it, right? And she's laughing, and then at some point, let me move it up a little bit. She just turns around. There you go. See, that's the moment she realized what it said, and she abandoned it, right? So and I've had I left this experiment running for like 3 days, and I've saw similar instances, right? And then Phil Denning came to take pictures every day of the car. of the vehicle. I don't know why he needed to take pictures every day. I mean, the car didn't move because at that point I wasn't even leaving the house. And the photo didn't change. I mean, it didn't update, right? It was just a printed piece of paper, so it was the same picture, right? So he was taking the same picture every day. That didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand why, right? Like, I didn't know if it was just pure old book, old school harassment. I don't know. Like, one picture would have been enough, right? Why take one picture every day of the same thing that is not changing? I didn't get that. But anyhow, so this was the first iteration of the data bomb, right? And then I made a little bit better, and I printed a set of magnetic decals for the vehicle that I installed in the window. That says spyhell.org, and so if you're a spy, right, and you know that you're trying to intercept the communications of somebody, and that person comes with a card that says spyhell.org, well, if it was me, I would try to go to that website, and that's exactly what they do, right? So I even created an integration with the pipeline in which the cameras kind of guess whether the person centered their attention on the decal based on the angle of what they're looking at and the direction they're looking at. And then it records that with a timestamp, and then joins that with the visit of the site from Google Analytics, right? So basically, I can more or less estimate the conversion rate of that ad, right? Like, I can more or less tell, what percentage of people are responding to the ad, to the magnetic decal that I have on the car. Which is interesting. The conversion rate is huge, right? I mean, I've worked I worked at Google in search, and I'm very familiar with the conversion rates, right, of online ads. I can tell you, right, an online ad that converts 2%, it's amazingly good, right? Well, this decal converts like 45%. Well, because they have a lot of people follow me to intercept and they know that what they're doing is illegal. So when they see a spy hell, well, it's very contextual to them, right? And they go and basically click on it, right? So that was the second iteration. And now I created this. The third iteration was I created this little number over here. So this is a funny story. So what happened was that when I bought the armor vehicle, right, it came equipped with a public announcement service. And I don't have the thing with me here, but it has a PA system, right, where like a push-to-talk microphone, and you could communicate with people on that side. And I always wanted to use it, right, like to joke with the agents, right, well as we were playing this game. Well, it's not a game really, right? Like, they're trying to kill me, but I mean, not the agents, right? But with the informations the agents gather, the organization, that network could kill me, right? I don't know if the agents know that they're trying to kill me. I mean, some of them do know. I know that for sure. Like, for example, the Kroger pharmacy man, right? Like the one that was tampering with my medication at Kroger pharmacy. He knows that they're trying to kill me, right? Because he was giving the order to switch the medication. But I also realized at this point that the number of agents that have instructions to physically harm me is very small. And it's like everything in life, right? It's like a pyramid, right? Like the ones that are in this pyramid of danger, right? There's a few agents that are at the top that are the most dangerous to me, like the Kroger pharmacy man, right? Like the guy with the red Bronco that I recorded in video that got caught by the ear. It's just co-clustered with the Kroger pharmacy man. That's why they keep sending him, right? Because they have a few like him. If they had 1,000 like him, they wouldn't send him, multiple times. But anyhow, yeah. So what I was saying is that I wanted to use the PA system, and I've always wanted to use it, but it doesn't work. Like when I received the vehicle and I tried it, it didn't work. And because of the situation in which I'm in, I'm not in a position in which I can like send the car back or be shipping things back and forth, because everything I ship or everything I receive is a door. It's an opportunity for the network to insert a microphone, to insert something to track me, to insert something to harm me. So I cannot be like doing that back and forth with the seller, right? So I left it at that. And I've tried to repair that thing myself multiple times, but I've never been able to. So anyhow, last week when I went to Micro Center on June 2nd, which was documented in one of the videos before, that was the time where they ran the experiments with the Texas Department of Agriculture truck and all that. That day, I went to Micro Center and I bought this little number. So it's basically a USB connector that basically goes from USB to 3.5 audio, right? And then this other connector that goes from 3.5 audio to 1/4 audio, right? Like this is the jack that the PA system of the truck uses. So with this, I'm able to connect my cell phone to the PA system, right? Directly, just the audio channel, right? The siren, it's a different mechanism, but the audio channel is what didn't work. So I started playing the podcast. That's the version 3 of the data bomb. I now play the podcast on the PA system, which is perfectly. There's no law against that. And knowing how much this stresses them, right? Like, they called the police because I was playing the podcast in my own home, right? Imagine the psychological effect this has on them, knowing that all this information is going out to anybody who's near me in audio, in any language, right? This is a very powerful bomb. And of course, I also have the integration of detecting the conversion rate. I adapted I adapted the analytics integration that I did for version 2 to this new version 3, right? So I now can measure, can estimate. It's not really a very deterministic measure because people can be looking just because they don't know what it's saying, or but it detects when people looks on my direction when the podcast is playing, and then later offline joins that event with visits on the website or queries on Spy Health, and that that gives me a good idea of the conversion rate. The next version of that is going to be because like as I'm doing this experiment, I realize that different parts of the podcast, people respond differently, right, to different parts of the podcast, and that's very telling, right? Like for example, if the podcast says Diosdado Cabello, right, and somebody turns around immediately, surprised, and I have a classifier to kind of detect emotions on face expressions. It's not very good. It's like the precision is like 75%. It's not very good, but it's better than nothing, right? So if the podcast says Diosdado Cabello and somebody turns around quickly, surprised, it's probably a Venezuelan agent, right? Specifically, not Chinese or not, you can tell it's a civilian agent. If the podcast says, Xi Jinping, and the person turns around, you know where they're from, right? So it's a very good, it's evolving in a good way, I think. So that's the data bomb experiment. And the idea again is to tie it back to the original, to the opening of this video. The idea is to destroy information asymmetry, right? To let people on the ground know what is going on, so they cease and desist, which is my ultimate goal. At least here in Katy, right? I want them to cease and desist. Now, speaking of that, there's another observation that I think is important. So in the website, I don't know if people would recall, there was an observation about these two vehicles with plates WDJ, right? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So 3 vehicles, right? Yeah. So, I mean, this is a very interesting post. It has the statistics, statistical calculation of the probability of this being random. Like I wanted to show rigor on this one, so people can see that this is not, that this shows coordination. This is proof of coordination, of coordinated effort with state-level resources. So the observation here is that the two vehicles have this license plate with a 4-digit prefix match, meaning WDJ9 on the two vehicles parked next to each other. And I calculate the probability of this being a random event, non-coordinated event, of being about 4 chances in 10 million, more or less, right? In the best case scenario for them. So this is proof of coordination. And then a few days later, I found the car intercepted me while I was driving from one of my houses to the other. Yes, this vehicle, right? You can see the plate here. Also has the same prefix, right? And then this one, the person made the mistake of showing her face, right? So it was even better. Now, what happened was, what I wanted to say is that in the last 2 days, the system has encountered 2 other vehicles with the prefix WDJ, Texas plate, intercepting me in a point that is marked in the geo index of Elon Musk, the one I captured on September 11, 2024. So by this point, it's been 5 vehicles with WDJ plates, right, intercepting me less than 30 feet from my vehicle at points marked in Elon Musk geo-index. And the probability of this being random is astronomically small. So this is relevant to this video. I should probably say that. Because this tells me that the information asymmetry is also being applied in a different dimension, right? What's happening here is that the Chinese intelligence services and the Russian intelligence services are not telling the 7 intelligence services, so the Venezuelan intelligence services, that this prefix has been identified, right? And I say this because I know from observations and measurements that I've done that the Chinese intelligence responds very quickly to what I post on the website, and they're very meticulous, right? Or for example, or the Russian intelligence as well, when I posted about the facial recognition using distances measured from the ear points, the next day the agents were covering their ears, right? The Russian agents and those were covering their ears, right? And the Chinese agents, but the Venezuelan agents weren't. So I can tell that the people that are consuming the content directly from the website are really the Russian and the Chinese intelligence services, not the Venezuelans. The Venezuelans are getting the information secondhand. And the Chinese and the Russians are deciding what to tell them, right? So now, I don't know if they didn't tell them about the WDJ, because the WDJ plates are Venezuelans. I can tell that for sure. So that series of plates is controlled by Diosdado Cabello, basically. And you can take that to the bank. But for some reason, the Chinese and the Russians are not telling them that series has been identified, right? Which is obvious that it has been identified. And it's obvious that they consume the content. So the question to me is why? Why don't they tell them, right? I mean, they're playing for a common goal. They should share the information, but they're not sharing it. So I don't know if it's incompetency, meaning they just don't communicate well with each other, which I don't know. I guess it's possible. Or if it's a form of information asymmetry just in a different dimension, right? A form of information asymmetry in the form of the Chinese intelligence and the Chinese government not sharing the information with their other partners to keep them under their control, or to be able to, I don't know, keep tabs on them. I don't know, right? But there must be a reason. There must be a reason for this. I don't think it's a random thing, or I don't think it's incompetence. They're not that incompetent. There must be a reason for them to keep them in the dark about things like that, like the ears and the plates when they're made. maybe, and I don't know, this occurred to me, right? Maybe they, how do I say this? I don't know if the word would be like a scapegoat in English, but maybe, right? The idea is, well, if somebody's gonna get caught, it's better if it's the Venezuelan than if it's us, right? So, if things related to them get made, we won't tell them, right? And if they get caught, they get caught, right? And then so there will be somebody to blame. I guess it's not a bad outcome at all, right? For the Chinese, I mean, it could be that, right? Could be a way to. I mean, it's not like they're throwing them under the bus, but if it happens, well, it's not that bad, right? Could be something like that. So I thought that's why I wanted to make this video. More than sharing about the data bomb, I wanted to make this comment because the dynamics between these major components of the organization, I mean the different intelligence services, right? The way they interact could be crucial to form a plan of attack in a way, right? I think that the free world needs to understand, what are the dynamics between these subcomponents of the organization, because there are weaknesses in those interactions, right? And understanding those weaknesses, gives a tactical advantage. So, well, I hope this was helpful. So I'll leave it at this today. Not today, for this video. I'll make a couple of other videos today. And I'm learning as I go. I've given a lot of demos in my life because that's what I do, but never in this format before. So I'm slowly learning how to do it. Well, thank you so much. Good day.